Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of Blue Leadership with your host, Dennis Nayer. Dennis is a 26-year law enforcement veteran and retired chief from the state of New York. He is also a proud graduate of the 240th session of the FBI National Academy and the 61st session of the FBI LEDA Command Institute. The Blue Leadership video podcast is brought to you by the nationally ranked Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership program at the University of San Diego. You can learn more about the LEPSL program at criminaljustice.sandiego.edu. With that, I'll kick things over to your host to introduce our featured guest.
Maddie, thank you so much, and it is great to be here. And so today's guest, everyone, is Captain Luis Martinez from the Culver City Police Department in California. We're going to talk about a host of issues. Quick background and bio. The captain's been with the police department for a little over 20 years, has a ton of accolades to his name and command colleges that he's gone to, the California Post Command Institute, the LAPD West Point Leadership School. He has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a master's degree in public administration, and a second master's degree in our acclaimed law enforcement and public safety leadership, or as we know it, LEPSL program. So without further ado, Captain Martinez, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we'll get started. One of the things that is one of the biggest contemporary issues within law enforcement is recruitment and retention. And at one of your leadership schools, you did an entire research on that and really delved into some data and came up with some interesting information. And what I'd like to do is start with, can you just say what your study was and then what you found from that study?
Sure. So I attended California Post Command College. It's a 14-month professional development course, usually for management and above here in law enforcement agencies in California. 14-month program. It's graduate level work, future studies, if you will. And what I decided to do was I chose my portfolio and specifically my article. I chose it on recruitment and retention. Went a little bit of a different route and wrote my article on in an opinion piece, if you will, that I believe that immigrants here in California, can they solve the staffing problems that we have here in California policing? So that's what I wrote my article on. I was blessed. I was fortunate that Lexipol decided to publish it, and they published it on policeone.com, I believe, in July.
That's huge for Lexipol to pick that up and for it to go onto Police One because it has such an extensive reach.
Yes,
and so kudos to that.
Thank
and
you.
So with that, you have a police agency has around 161 officers, maybe 109 sworn. For progressive agency, a quality agency. I commented before we went live just how impressed I was to see your agency posted its entire policy manual on its website, that's transparency right there. With that, how is the recruitment and retention issue, how is that impacting or affecting your agency specifically?
Like most agencies, my department, Culver City PD, it's been pretty greatly impacted by the staffing shortages here in California and across the country. And I mentioned that in my article. For example, when I applied back in 2003, and I took the written test and physical agility test, I competed amongst at least 200 applicants. We took it in this very big auditorium. Maybe 2 or 3 open positions. On the flip side, just last week, we had a testing date. 23 applicants showed up. That's right, 23. We have 10 vacancies, probably another 10 in the next 6 to 9 months. And then what I discovered was, ever since the murder of George Floyd, we've lost a lot of officers. Many have simply quit. Some have moved out of state. Others have left other police departments out of state. And a good chunk, I'd say probably 10 to 15% of our workforce went on stress medical leave. And sadly, some didn't return. But what was most alarming was that I noticed that a lot of personnel, a lot of sworn officers were retiring. And not only were they retiring early, they were retiring pretty much the first second they could, the first second they were eligible. Here in California, us, it was the second you turn 50. We just had he's actually a Lepso grad last Thursday. Last Thursday was his last day, turned 50 years old, and is calling it quits, calling it a career, did 25 years. And they're leaving years of service, pension credits on the table. And when you talk to them, they just say, hey, it's time. I'm burned out. So like, in speaking to my counterparts in other neighboring agencies, this is common. We're not alone.
Right. And I'm on the East Coast, 3,000 miles away, and we have the same challenges. And what you're losing is so much institutional knowledge and experience.
Absolutely.
And as a derivative of that, you're having people promote up into ranks that maybe they're not quite ready for, but that's another byproduct of this. And what's really interesting is, it all ties into the health and wellness component. And I think in a lot of ways, it's a good choice if people know that they're done and they're spent, because it's really, full speed ahead all day, every day. And, when someone knows it's time, it's time.
Correct.
But what I wanted to ask you, when you look at, so you talked about when you started, and similar to when I started, you did everything you could to stand out. And whether it's pushing the limit on your push-ups in your physical exertion test, or scoring 2 points higher on the written test, or whatever, you knew you were in tough competition. And when you're looking at hiring, you're looking at maybe you can bring on 10% of all the qualified candidates.
Right.
And where you have maybe 10 candidates and you have 23 applicants, that gives a number of 2.3. So, I mean, that is a task ahead of you and your executive colleagues. Yeah.
If we can hire 2 to 3 out of 23, two out of 2 to 3 quality individuals, for us, sad to say, that's a win. That's a win for us, 2 to 3 out of 23, but we're just constantly testing. We're not going to reduce our standards. We're looking for quality over quantity, but I'd be lying if I said that, we wish we had more applicants, we could get more bodies, but it's just not the case, at least now.
Right. And with that attrition significantly outpacing the ability to hire, because I think you said you had 8 to 10 openings, and even if you get those 2 to 3 quality ones, that still has a net loss of, you have, 7 or 8 positions that still don't have a body in them.
Correct. Can't keep up with attrition. It's extremely difficult.
And one of the things you said, and I'd love to hear more on it, and I know the listeners and viewers would, you talked about, a short-term solution, and this has gone on across the country,
right,
about let's give some incentives. So we'll give 15,000. Another agency will give 20. It's almost going to the highest bidder. And again, we look back to when we started, there was never a thought of that because there was so much competition. And your studies have shown that maybe it's a short-term solution, but not the long. And I'd love to hear what you found on that.
Yeah, similar to you, Chief. When I applied, I just wanted to be a cop. Incentives were the last thing on my mind. So in my article that I wrote, I argued that a lot of agencies are offering a bunch of incentives that I believe are, not tenable long term. The strategies just aren't going to last. And what I meant with that was that during my research, I just discovered that agencies were offering insanely large signing bonus. One agency that I found was up here in the Bay Area of California, $75,000. $75,000 to join their department. Other agencies are offering double time to work patrol to encourage their current staff to fill those shifts, because at the end of the day, patrol is the backbone of all law enforcement agencies. That's no secret. And they have to have bodies out there in a black and white handling calls for service. And they're offering double time. So to me, these incentives they're short-term solutions. They're going to grab attention. Yes, they're going to lure some applicants, but just like most marketing ideas in the business world, there's always a catch. To me, there's always that small print. First of all, what type of applicant are you really getting on who is enamored with these large signing bonuses? Do they really want to come to work for you, or are they more interested in the financial aspects? Are they invested in your organization, or their bottom line? As far as working double time for patrol, I just feel that that's a stopgap measure. Officers are going to be enamored with the amount of money they're making, but as an agency leader, I'm concerned, how much are they working? Will burnout play a role? That's a liability. It's a huge liability. And, I've met officers who, sadly enough, have become dependent on working these large amounts of overtime and living beyond their means. And to me, that's problematic. And I think agency leaders agree that that's problematic. And then here's one issue that I discovered, especially now as a captain, is due to work, compressed work schedules. Most police departments work a 3-day, 12.5-hour shift. A lot of officers don't want to leave patrol because they have the best of both worlds. They have a compressed work schedule. They can pick up overtime, pick up 2 extra shifts of overtime and still have 2 days off. That sounds great, right? Well, now you have a part of your sworn workforce that may not be interested in working other key assignments like detectives or motors, K9, plainclothes assignment task forces. Why? Because that's a 4-10 schedule. So that's also problematic. In my opinion, in the research I did and talking to my colleagues, what is sustainable is offering them incentives that, especially the new generation of police officers, things they value. The Gen Zers, they value, time off, quality of life, a strong work, personal life balance, if you will. They want community support, city council support, a strong work culture, educational incentives. I've seen some police departments offer like a stipend for childcare for the first 2 years of their career. That's a great idea. I've also seen, one of my counterparts at Command College. I'll give him some love. He's actually a LEPSO grad as well, Lieutenant Wes Herman from Citrus Heights PD. He came up with another great idea, which was, an entire tuition school loan forgiveness program if you agree to stay in law enforcement for a set amount of years, let's say 5 or 10 years. Another one he came up with was a proposal of having first responders in the United States get a complete federal tax break. That's an interesting thought. I think that would also help recruitment and retention issues. Those are great ideas. But last but not least, I think agencies need to have a very robust wellness program. And I think that's a key to improving just morale at a police department, helping with retention issues. And in speaking to my young officers, it's things like that they value, that they desire.
Yeah, I fully agree. And if you watch my expression, my jaw literally dropped when you said $75,000. And it is. I mean, I was seeing it a lot when we were looking at 15, 20, 25,000, and it's unheard of numbers. But to know that is going that high, you are correct 100% in the fact that you will attract people that maybe never even had a desire to be in law enforcement, but they see that big dollar sign and they'll try it out. And that's not what we want, because this is such an important role in service and public safety that we want people who intrinsically want to do it. And yeah, now with competition, you have to do what you can to lure in the best candidates, and sometimes a financial incentive is it. But if it's too much, I agree with you. You're going to get people who really don't have a desire, but they want that type of monetary gain.
I agree.
The other thing too, wellness, and you and we could probably talk about that at length, but like that's such a component to be infused into everything, and that the scheduling, and a lot of young officers, you're right, they'll be drawn toward the money, and they don't realize that they're they're ruining their work-life balance. They're just working, then their standard of living increases to a point that's commensurate with that type of money of making, say, double time. And then it's a tough cycle. So I think your idea is really about making wellness a part of the department, getting the support, tuition reimbursement. I love that idea with federal tax credits. Those are all stellar ideas.
Absolutely.
And what I wanted to ask, so SB 960, I'm an East Coaster. I know, the Senate bills, the Assembly bills, I obviously, but I don't have the familiarity. And I was wondering if you could explain that and how that
Sure.
created a pathway toward better recruitment?
Yeah. So obviously LEPSO is worldwide. Here in California, we have Senate Bill 960. And it created a new avenue for law enforcement recruitment, if you will. So to me, Senate Bill 960 was a game changer. So basically in the past, the California Government Code, I think it's section 1031, it required that peace officer candidate applicants be a U.S. resident and have the ability to attain U.S. citizenship within 3 years of hire. The only exception was the CHP, which at the time required candidates to be, when you got sworn in, you had to be U.S. citizens. However, in September of 2022, Governor Gavin Newsom passed Senate Bill 960. This bill allowed applicants with a federal right to work in the United States to apply to be peace officers in the state of California. Now, I know I've read many, many articles. I've actually gotten contacted by several news outlets, periodicals, newspapers who have asked me about Senate Bill 960 and my article. They got it from Lexipol when they read it. Some states are not on board with it. And I know that it's caused some controversy. I understand that. But here in California, we view things a little bit differently. And that goes for the city I work for, Culver City. For us, the bottom line, and I think my Chief Jason Sims says it best. If you have great character, if you have a strong work ethic, if you have strong morals and values, you're a team player and you have a positive attitude, we don't care if you're a resident or a citizen. If the law allows you to apply to be a police officer and you meet that criteria that's been established by the law, which Senate Bill 960 allows, we want you to apply. We want you. And what my research in my article revealed was that in California, more than half of all Californians are between the ages of around 18 to 22, and they're Latino. In LA County, which is where I live and where Culver City is located, 49% of the population is Latino. A huge number of potential candidates are 18 to 22, and they've come to the United States from all parts of this world. Some as toddlers, some came here under the DACA program under the Obama administration, and they all came here through no fault of their own. Many are law-abiding folks. Many have graduated from colleges and university. They've given back to their community. They hold solid employment. My thinking was, why hold these people back from allowing them to apply to serve our communities? So, for example, October 23rd, so about 2 weeks ago, we hired one kid. We hired he's 22 years old. I featured him in my article. I highlighted him. He was born in Honduras. Came to this country when he was with his family at the age of 5. And this past May, he graduated with a bachelor's degree from a local university here in Southern California. Spotless, clean record. And he started the academy. Today's Wednesday. He started 2 days ago. On Tuesday was his first day. And he's the first applicant to be hired under Senate Bill 960 for our organization. And believe me, I think he won't be the last.
That's great. And as I'm listening, and you answered the question, I think, because I was going to say, everyone, they have to meet the background check and all the requirements as anyone else, and pass the same stringent standards of a police academy. So with all that, I see you as seeing a problem, the attrition, the inability to keep up, and finding a very viable solution. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's something that, in some of the articles I read from other parts of this country, where they said, hey, we're just going to be handing out applications to people who just crossed the border. No, just stop. You have to have a federal right to work. And then more importantly, you still have to pass the stringent background investigation here in California. You have to be fully vetted. And then you have to go through the academy just like everyone else. You're not treated any differently. This kid that we just hired went through a pretty thorough background. And he had a clean background. And I just think he deserved a shot, and we gave it to him.
That's awesome. And, in a leadership, one of the main things is to explore, what you're doing. And, from an organizational theory, that double loop learning. Are you just doing what you've always done? Are you exploring what you're doing to see, is there a better way, or how can we accomplish our task at hand? And I think you're taking theory and putting it into action here, and, you know, making a solution where everyone else is struggling to find one. And one of the things I had as a question for you, I wanted to ask was Culver City Police Department. Dr. Fritzfold told me that so many top-notch students have come through the LEPSL program from your agency. So, and now I'm seeing something like this, which is super creative, outside the box thinking to solve a problem, give people a chance to, again, meet the standards. And it's nothing but good thinking. And what I wanted to ask is, what is it about your agency that's so professionally development oriented and that produces, you know, that sort of department and cadre of officers?
Well, first off, thank you for that comment. Eric Fitzfold, Professor Fitzfold, has been a huge supporter of our organization, and I'll do whatever I can to help support him and the University of San Diego. Culver City, we've just always stressed the importance of an education, professional growth, professional development, and we're extremely proud. Our entire command staff has master's degrees, and we've had master's degrees for a long time. It's not just a new buzz or a new trend. As long as I can remember, if you had aspirations of one day being part of the command staff, you had to have a master's degree. It wasn't written in etched in stone, but it was pretty much, if you didn't have it, you were going to have a tough time beating out other candidates. Our command staff all have master's degrees. We have 8 lieutenants, middle management, and out of the 8, 6 have master's degree. The other 2 have bachelor's degree. So I've talked to those other 2 and plan on put them in touch with Eric, work on that, and see if we can maybe get them on board to work on their master's degrees. I think that's extremely doable. Same goes for our sergeants. Numerous. What do we have? 17 sergeants, and I want to say, off the top of my head, I think one or 2 have an AA. Everyone else has at least a BA. Several actually already have their masters. The city of Culver City, not just the Culver City Police Department, but the city of Culver City has always had a very generous tuition reimbursement program. So, additionally, we pay employees extra for having an AA or a BA or a master's. So there really isn't an excuse. And with that being said, I've worked with officers, I work with supervisors who have had degrees, and they've been lousy on average. I've also worked with cops who have had no college education who have been fantastic. However, data shows that by and large, educated cops, educated police officers, educated police professionals, they write better reports. They interact with the public much, much better. They de-escalate situations more easily. Just better critical thinkers. And quite frankly, they just simply perform better. So again, my department's big on education. We believe in the concept of succession planning and employee development. And it's imperative that as agency leaders, we help our employees grow and develop so that one day they replace us. And one area that we do this by is having them pursue advanced degrees.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I was hoping, and I was pretty confident you'd add critical thinking into your mix, which you did. And that's true. And the ability for officers to be able to speak well, and like you said, write well, and de-escalate, which is key right now. And look at policing as it stands now. This is a thinking person's profession. It's something that requires that growth mindset, the ability to do research, to make an approach that's data driven and not emotional based, or, well, this is how we've done it. And everything you said aligns exactly with how I personally feel about the value of education. And what I wanted to ask you, Captain, so you already had a master's degree, and a master's degree is a lot of work. And you decided, you know what, you're going to go for a second master's degree. And you achieved that with the Lepsel degree. What was it that drew you into to say, you know what, I have an MPA, but I want to get a second one? Why Lepsel?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know, what many people don't know is that I wasn't always into school. I wasn't always into professional development. Just being completely honest. Um, I came from an immigrant family with meager beginnings. We didn't have much. My three oldest siblings, they only made it to high school and they earned their high school diplomas, but they had tremendous career. One worked with LA County for over 30 years. The other two have successful construction businesses. And then I'm the youngest of six. The other two did go to college. One went to UCLA, one went to USC, one is an educator, and then the other is an officer with the California Highway Patrol. Well, I lasted, I think it was 2 semesters right after I finished high school. I knew I always wanted to be a police officer, but quite frankly, I just lacked focus. So I lacked a mentor. So, someone to show me the way. And after I got hired as a community service officer at Culver City, some people call them cadets, we call them CSOs. I found that mentor, and he's a now retired assistant chief. And I was blessed. He took me under his wing, strongly encouraged me. And when I say strongly, I mean probably forcefully, encouraged me to go to school. And that's what I did. I went to a local community college here, transferred all my credits to a 4-year school, and I earned my BS. He said, hey, keep going. He had a master's degree. He said, keep going. So I went, kept going, got my MPA, my master's in public administration. And I did this all while, working a pretty fast-paced assignment. I was working a crime suppression assignment at the time, and then I became an FTO. As far as professional development back then, I had no idea what that was. I just wanted to be a cop and work all the fun assignments. So again, my assistant chief said, you can do both. And so there I went. I completed like the FBI Leader trilogy as an officer and a newly promoted sergeant. From there, I went to the Sherman Block Supervisor Leadership Institute, SLI, and so on. And, some people ask me why. Well, I'm a firm believer in being, that learning is a lifelong journey. It just never ends. And so I try to just get my hands on as much training as I can. So, for example, right now I'm doing this interview from Santa Rosa, California. I'm up here in the north of Sacramento, and I'm attending SWAT Commander School. So why, you ask? Some people are probably going to say, why are you attending SWAT Commander School? You're a captain. Well, I'm taking over the SWAT team. And I believe in the saying that you don't know what you don't know. I've never worked SWAT, ever. I did work major narcotics for many, many years, and I've served search warrants. With that being said, I'm here because I want to educate myself on what SWAT operators, supervisors, managers, why they do what they do. And I'm just looking to develop the skill and then understand why it is they do what they do, and then give them the support and the resources that they need to do their job. As far as earning my second master's degree, and specifically from USD, well, I earned my master's in 2010. So I've been around 11, 12 years since I had been in school. Like I said earlier, I just always felt that you can never be too old to learn new tricks. My peers who had been to USD spoke extremely highly of the program. And I did some research, and I just felt that the program, I found that the program was, it was unique, refreshing, had job-specific, job-relevant classes, easy to follow style of learning, completing the coursework. So quite frankly, I went back to USD to reinvent myself, if you will, with just, cutting edge topics, ideas, concepts. And I learned a bunch of cool things: budget preparation, MOUs, dealing with the homeless, the technology piece. I think that was taught by Professor Jeff Jordan from San Diego PD. Fantastic. The case law that he gave, the real life examples that he gave, they were outstanding. So most of my career was either street or investigative based. And it wasn't until I became a lieutenant that I started taking on the admin assignments. And so learning all these great things at USD, it just helped me get a better understanding of some of the admin things that managers face at police departments. And additionally, I'd be remiss if I didn't give credit where credit's due. I'd give a lot of credit to my wife, Brandy. She's a deputy district attorney with the LA County DA's office. And I'm not just saying it, but she's an extremely bright individual, just a tremendous attorney. I pick her brain all the time. And she's encouraged me 100%. Develop yourself professionally, earn advanced degrees. And she's done all of this while helping raise our two daughters. So just a tremendous inspiration. But just the format of USD, the way it's tailored for working professionals, and then the material, and then as well as the top-notch instructors, and quite frankly, also the quality students that my peers in the classroom, it was a pretty easy decision for me.
That's awesome. I'm taking it all in, and it's so much of what you said aligns with so much of what other graduates have said of the reasons why they've started it and what they've taken from it, and why it was the program for them. So thank you for that. And what I want to close with, what I want to ask you, Captain, is everyone has their own leadership philosophies, most of which some they've developed on their own, some they've borrowed from other great leaders. Anything you'd like to close with on your personal leadership philosophies, or anyone that you specifically follow?
Great question. So, as I mentioned earlier, I attended the Sherman Block Supervisor Leadership Institute many years ago. I'm class 424 for those who've been to SLI here in California. And in the class, the Band of Brothers, the HBO miniseries was the case study, if you will, that the staff used to demonstrate strong, effective leadership, as well as poor, toxic, and ineffective leadership. I actually saw the miniseries before SLI. An old sergeant of mine showed it to us, in roll call over the period of several months. But anyways, in the Band of Brothers movie series, there was not a character, but an individual by the name of Dick Winters. He was a major in the Army, commanded Easy Company, 104th Airborne Division. But it was his style of leadership, his views that, what it took to be an effective leader, his philosophy. And that's just something that I've tried to emulate over the years. And it's something that I try to, model my leadership style after. He just had a bunch of strong, just solid leadership traits that hold true to this day. Leading by example, being mentally and physically tough, being resilient, being humble, having humility, being self-aware, knowing your team, being resourceful. For those who haven't read his book, I recommend that. It's called, I think it's called Beyond Band of Brothers. And then in command college, we had required reading, a lot of required reading. And one of the books I read was a book on leadership from an individual named Hal Moore. He was also in the Army. He was a lieutenant general. His book was also very solid, and he had a lot of similar traits to Major Winters. And what he stressed was the importance of preparation. You have to dedicate time to learning. You need to prepare for whatever challenges come before you. And at the same time, you have to develop and prepare your staff. So training and succession planning was a must. That's something that he stressed. He also talked about being adaptable and flexible. So when challenges do come your way, as leaders, you got to be open to new ideas, new concepts, just be willing to change due to the ever-changing needs of people, of teams, of goals, of objectives, leading from the front. Effective leaders, he stressed that effective leaders need to be engaged. You need to be present. And I think, Chief, you'll agree that the higher you go up in an organization, the more engaged you need to be with your people. So I try to spend as much time as I can with my guys and girls. So it's whether going out in the field with them, answering calls with them, or just supporting them during events, athletic events, whatever it may be, being present to me is very, very vital, very, very important. It fosters like a sense of unity, of purpose, and you can't phone it in. An old chief once said, as a leader, you just can't phone it in. You have to be present, caring for your people, caring for your subordinates. That's something that Hal Moore stressed on. He valued, he was legendary for his commitment to his troops. Like Winters, he knew, and similar to law enforcement, our personnel are our most valuable asset. Law enforcement is no different. So just be genuine, be sincere, be engaging, take care of your employees. And if you promote that supportive environment and you're empathetic and, compassionate, You're going to build a culture of trust, of loyalty. It's going to boost morale. And then last but not least, Hal Moore just believed in being a lifelong learner. And I agree with that. So he sought opportunities to enhance his skills, to enhance his knowledge. And, he earned advanced degrees, and he encouraged his troops to do the same. So he understood that professional development and education, they make you a more well-rounded and knowledgeable individual. And by and large, it's going to help you. It's going to enhance your ability to succeed. So those are just philosophy of leadership. Those two individuals that I try to model my way of leadership as ever since I was like an officer in FTO, sergeant, and lieutenant. I continue it on, and even now as a captain.
Powerful way to close out today. We are a leadership-based podcast, covered a lot of things from recruitment and retention, thinking outside the box, the value of education, the value of what is leadership. Captain, thank you so much. Maddie's coming in. She's going to close us out. Thank you for sharing your expertise, a little of your journey, a little bit about your department. And I am confident in saying that I am sure the listeners and viewers got a lot out of today's episode.
Appreciate the both of you.
Yes. All righty. Thank you so much to both of you today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day for today's session. And to our viewers, we also want to take the time to thank you as well for taking time out of your day to meet the law enforcement heroes and leaders who are part of our MS Lepsel family. If you would like to watch previous episodes of Blue Leadership, you can find them on the video tab of our Facebook page or by searching USD Blue Leadership on YouTube. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.